Chad is the Assistant Parks Director and oversees park operations, as well as some of our revenue facilities, along with Jenny McColian, who's our Revenue Facilities Manager behind me. She'll be joining us at a certain point. And then Dan Brown is our Senior Center Manager that joined us back in July. So we'll be rotating people up here as we go through. Our department does have 10 budgets, so we'll take a little bit of your time this afternoon. Not quite as many as James, and we don't have to come back a second day, so we'll get through everything here, hopefully in some decent time. But feel free to ask any questions you got of any of us. Operationally, gentlemen here and Jenny will probably answer the questions the best, but we'll all be kind of teaming up. So the first one we'll start with is the Parks General Fund, which should be on page 141. As we go through our budgets, you're going to see a lot of our strategic plan goals are consistent. A lot of those are going to deal with enhancing our quality of life, services, and assets, strengthening our neighborhoods. We'll talk a lot about partnerships. You'll hear some discussion about a number of our events that we hosted this year, things we're looking to do next year. And I think you're also going to hear a lot of our dependence on volunteers. All of our divisions depend on our volunteers. Senior Center very heavily, but also in the operations side, and then Jenny with a lot of our special events. So you may hear a lot about that. As far as the Parks Department goes, some of our major accomplishments for 2023, just wanted to highlight some of those. We continue to expand our pickleball courts throughout the city. As Mr. Bulow knows, pickleball is fastest growing sport, and we are trying our best to provide pickleball courts throughout the city. We do have courts, obviously, at Menominee Park, South Park, and then we just completed some new courts at West Haven Circle Park, as well as at Tech Miller. So now we have courts located in every quadrant of the city, basically, north, south, east, and west. At West Haven Circle and Tech Miller, we had 2 tennis courts at each site. We reduced it to 1 tennis court and added 2 pickleball courts in that space where we took one of the courts away. So I think it's going to help. We've got a lot of comments from individuals that like to play pickleball, South Park, Menominee Park, and it's primarily played in the morning hours up until noon. Sometimes you go in the afternoons and it's not as heavily used due to the heat and other things like that. But I think this is going to help disperse some of those players throughout the community. So I hope that'll take some of the pressure off of South Park and Menominee Park. We replaced the playground equipment at Roll Park. That was part of a project that we worked with the River East Neighborhood Association. That was a project that they had requested some funding through our Healthy Neighborhood initiatives. So we completed that project this summer. In all of our playgrounds, whenever we put in new equipment, we're putting in the poured-in-place rubber surfacing. It makes it more accessible, a lot less maintenance for us. We don't have to go in every year, every other year, putting the wood mulch in. So you'll see that a lot of our playgrounds now have that resilient surfacing. Also, it's a safer product for individual users. Out at Lakeshore Park, we're currently finishing the asphalt of a parking lot. It'll be right adjacent to Two Brothers and La Quinta. So it's really going to act as a trailhead parking lot. That was, I believe, asphalt will be taking place, the final coat this week. There's a trail connection then going from the parking lot north to the water, connecting up to our Lakeshore Park Trail. And then it also connects to the Tribal Heritage Trail. So really see that parking lot being utilized, taking a lot of those people that were parking at Two Brothers and inside the hotel parking lot, being able to have them park in the park itself, get onto the trail system. So that is being completed. The trail had been asphalted about 2 weeks ago. And then not only that connection, but through the middle of the park, there was basically a haul road for when there was work being done on the stormwater management out there for when Oshkosh Corp was constructed. We worked with engineering to leave that basically road base in, and we were able to pave a trail over the top of that. So there's also a trail that's going to be going through the center of the park, again, straight north and south, to have kind of a loop throughout that park already as well. A lot of our time was spent the last year on our new Parks Administration Operations Building. Happy to say that we are fully into that facility now. We got final occupancy early last week for the shop and fleet area, so our team is moving a lot of the equipment in this week. Our administrative staff, we've been in there for about a month now, and so we're going to continue to make it home. We still have purchasing to make within the shops itself, a lot of looking at doing some racking, making sure that things are efficient and organized. We want to start out that way so that our efficiency in the department can continue to grow. We're hoping to have a public open house in the near future, so we'll definitely let you know about that. We had hoped to do it before the weather turned, but obviously, we're getting right up to the winter months right now. We started initially talking maybe one of the first Saturdays in December, so keep an eye. Well, we'll make sure and get you that information when we have an open house. If anybody wants to pop in or give me a call ahead of time, we can definitely take you on a walk through. But I really see that improving our efficiency. I think the city manager talks a lot about the field operations. When that building was completed, I believe that staff gets out the door about 20 to 25 minutes earlier each day. So if you compound that by the number of staff we have by the days in the year, I think that's going to help us out quite a bit. Also helps us to get all of our staff under one roof. We had staff scattered from the cemetery to Menominee Park, Senior Center. So just the communication and being able to walk down the hallway and for efficiency as well. Plus getting all of our equipment under a roof. We had, again, equipment stored at the Riverside Cemetery outside. Senior Center, we had equipment stored at times. So just, again, getting everything all in one location is huge for our operations. The Lakeshore Park Four Seasons building, that project, we're still not fully complete. We have some punch list items we're working on. We did have an event out there a week and a half ago for the Go H&I event. That was something I committed to about 6 months ago, in my mind, hoping the facility and everything would be complete. We were able to pull it off, but again, there's still punch list items. We are getting a number of inquiries from people wondering when they can start renting that. I'm asking them to give us about another 2 weeks just to see where we're at on some of the punch list things. And then we can let everybody know when we'll start taking reservations for that. And we'll take reservations just like we do for our other park shelters. We'll take them 1 year in advance of the event. So working on that, I think it's going to be a really neat facility for the community along the waterfront. If you haven't seen it, again, I can take you through there. But there's some exterior and some interior punch list items that we're still working on. But it should be ready to go. It will be ready to go for some late winter into the spring rentals. So again, we're hoping to have a ribbon cutting and an open house so people can come up and check that out as well.
Councilmember Ford and I were both at that UH&I event, and I know I received plenty of comments, both from people within our community and outside of our community who thought the facility was top-notch, very cool facility, great location. Just wanted to pass on the compliments that it's looking really good, and it should be an asset and a gem right there on the river. So.
Yeah, and as the council knows, you approved the rental fees, I think about 2 months ago. We made sure to keep it reasonable and affordable. It'll be available for rent 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. That gives our team some time to get in there after the event or before a back-to-back event where we can do some cleanup and kind of get things organized for the next event coming in. But I agree, it's really going to be a unique facility for the city of Oshkosh. I think people are going to really enjoy the feel that you get being along the water, the glass doors, the glass windows, everything just is a really, really nice feel to it. So I know you are hopefully aware of the Pratt Trail Road reconstruction project. I was listening this morning when Mr. Robbie was talking about that. We'll continue to coordinate with their department and all the entities involved and hopefully come to a resolve and get that project finished up, come into next spring, early summer. We did make some ADA improvements throughout the parks, mainly in a lot of our buildings, the restroom facilities, as part of the assessment that was done throughout all city facilities. Chad has been working with John Urban and his team from facilities on making a number of those improvements. We do have a pretty extensive list. I would say the majority of those projects are park projects, but again, we have probably some of the most facilities of any department, so obviously we're going to have a lot more ADA type issues to address. Item that we just started within the 2 weeks is our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan update, or CORP for short. We're required to update that document every 5 years in order to remain eligible for DNR grant funding. So we started that process, as I said, 2 weeks ago. It'll start coming to the Parks Board over the next couple months, where we're going to start talking about our goals and objectives for the next 5 years, take a look at any growth that the city might be doing on any potential future parks, as well as capital improvements and facility improvements at each park site. So that process it's pretty lengthy. I'm asking the consultant to have the document completed. It'll come to the Parks Board, Plan Commission, and then ultimately the Common Council. My hope is to have that done in May as we start getting into the CIP process. So, talk a little bit about goals for '24 that we made note of in the document. 44th parallel play equipment is scheduled for replacement. Again, we'll be doing port-in-place surfacing as well as an ADA-compliant access to the play structure. Pratt Trail completion. In the CIP, we did request funding next year for Seaward Trail. Seaward Trail is the one that basically goes off to the west of the zoo and then up to the boat launch. With the issues that we're having at Pratt Trail, we obviously will not be doing Seaward Trail next year. But I suggested, and Mark and Russ and I talked, not knowing exactly what funding we're going to need to make sure the Pratt Trail project is done. I would suggest we still keep that project in there, and we'll most likely be using some of that funding at the Pratt Trail, but we'll be holding off on the Seaward Trail project through next year at least. Another goal is to finish our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. And then we do have Pickard Park, which is on the west side of the city that was dedicated as part of that development about 2 or 3 years ago, I believe, 3. And so we are going to be working with the Parks Board and the neighbors out there to draft a master plan for that small park. It's only about 1.5 acres, but we are looking to start having some neighborhood meetings to get input from the neighborhood on what they'd like to see in that little neighborhood park. And then once that's completed, we hope to start developing that in 2024 as well. Looking at the budget itself, I did want to make note that Denise probably handed out an update to the council. The original personnel sheet that was on page 142 of the document, it wasn't accurate, and I'll start out letting you know. Later on, we'll be talking about, we call it our 255 fund. It's a special revenue fund for facilities that a lot of those Jenny oversees. We had a separate budget in the 255 for Lakeshore Park, as well as a horticulturist position that we have a partnership with the Convention Visitors Bureau, the BID, and the Community Foundation, that they are funding that position for 4 years. During this process this year, we decided as a team that we were going to transfer the Lakeshore Park budget or numbers into the parks operation. And then the horticulturist position falls underneath Travis's area, so we moved that position out of, again, that 255 into the forestry budget. So you're going to see a change in some of the personnel numbers. You'll see them removed from the 255 and then added into parks and forestry. So in the park side, park maintenance worker, if you take a look at current actual employees, we had 0. Those 3 employees for '24, those were actually budgeted in the Lakeshore Park. So that's why the increase, it's not really an increase, it's a transfer of where those personnel are being reported. And then I can let you know once we get to the forestry side on that change as well. I will take any questions. I can tell you that when I looked at a couple things that might jump out on page 143 on the revenues, you'll see that our revenues take a pretty good jump. That jump is mainly for expected revenue from the rental of the Lakeshore Four Seasons building. We're expecting some pretty good revenue coming in from that, so that's reflected in the additional revenue. And I think when you take a look at the individual expenditures, a lot of those increases, again, are due to those transferring in of personnel and operations from Lakeshore and the horticulturist position. So I will take any questions that you might have on parks. Yes, sir.
Just wondering, and this is really, really minor, but I go down South Park all the time, and quite a few times when people rent out would be the far east pavilion, people have their cars parked there constantly. Do we not have signs or something that say do not park your vehicles here, or something along that line?
We inform the individuals when they rent that shelter. We do let them know that they're not allowed to drive down there. We do work with the police department as well. If we are aware that they're parking there, we'll ask the police to go down and just ask them to move, I believe on the trail itself leading down there, I'd have to check, but I thought there was a sign that says no vehicles or maintenance vehicles only, going out of the park. We can check on that, but it is an issue. The long-term plan for South Park does call for a parking lot to be installed off of Ohio, but again, that's a long-term
That's
plan
kind of
as well.
Dug-in type thing for all?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
How, I mean, I know it's kind of off track here, but how far in are you talking about off of Ohio then?
It would-
Just to park cars, or?
Yes,
is it a
just to park
parking lot?
cars. Small parking lot. If I recall correctly, it might actually be almost like a horseshoe, Paul, that would
Yeah,
have
okay.
parallel or perpendicular parking. I'd have to look at the master plan.
Right.
And all of our master plans are available on the city website. If you go to our department, on the left-hand side, you'll see park plans, and click on that. Our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and all of our park plans are there as well.
Okay, great.
So again, all those individual park plans are probably 20 to 25-year plans, but it is something that is addressed in there hopefully in the future, so.
Question. Under the updated sheet, Unity and Community Fund, there's one proposed for 2024. Can you explain that?
That'll be in the 255, that'll be one of our later budgets, that's in a special revenue fund, and we can address that then, yes, if that's okay. The parks, what we're in right now is the general fund, and the 255 that you're referring to has got probably 10 or 12 different individual budgets within it. Is that okay? We'll get to that one shortly.
So the 10 or 12 budgets within it are the ones that are listed?
That's correct. Those are all considered project funds in our 255 budget, but they're individually
But there's no
accounted for.
funding proposed for Unity and Community, but there is for the other ones. Yeah, some.
Yeah, the Unity and Community is one that was placed into this fund a couple of years ago when there was a fund that was or a balance carrying forward. I can't address the funding for that. I just know it shows up here in our budget. We can have that discussion, I think,
Yeah.
us, when we get to that point.
Yep. So what we have is, right now, Ray's talking about the general fund portion of it. And 255 is one of those special revenue funds that account for a lot of other activities. All of his activities are in one fund, but we have different projects or project codes for everything from the zoo to the boat launch to amusement rides. And what we gave you today is just a summary showing the revenue and expenditure side of things, but we'll talk about that when we get to 255. Were you gonna go from parks into something else?
It'll go right to forestry. Then I was going to try to follow through the book as much as possible.
Okay.
Keep you from paging too far ahead. So we'll get to that. If there's no specific questions on the parks general, the next page, so 144 is the forestry division. Again, Travis is the landscape operations manager, oversees the forestry. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that after I kind of give you an overview. So Travis oversees this and cemetery, which is another separate budget. As you can imagine, a lot of Travis's team and his time has been spent on the emerald ash borer, that mitigation and then replacing of trees and trying to get ahead of that. I don't think we're ever going to get ahead of it. As you probably see as you drive around the city, there are public-private ash trees that it's just decimated the city. And Travis will talk a little bit about that. But again, as far as strategic plan goals, promoting and developing public-private partnerships, which is something we'll talk about, strengthening our neighborhoods, enhancing our quality of life services and assets. One of the partnerships that we brought back again, taking root, was a fund or a project that the community foundation took on with the city. I think it was back in 2009 and 2010, right around when I was starting. That was a project to help raise additional funds for beautification efforts. And what we did was worked with Mr. Wyman and his team to call it Taking Route 2. Challenge was to try to raise, the original goal was $500,000, and then the community foundation took on a goal of last year raising $300,000. I'm happy to report that they have reached that goal. They're continuing to try to raise additional funds, but they did, in fact, reach about $300,000 last year. And what we're able to do as the city is that helps us then replant some of the ash trees that we have to take down. We're specifically using that fund for the replacement of trees. We're not touching it for the removals. We're trying to do that with some of the city dollars as well as our in-house staff. Another project was at the convention center. Travis's team oversees the maintenance of a lot of the public shrub beds and flower beds around the city. So around the convention center, the landscaping was updated, as well as we installed a gazebo behind the convention center, and there was landscaping completed around that. And then our goal for the department is to prune 1/5 of the city street trees each year. Travis and his team has the city basically broken into 5 different areas, and roughly probably 1,500 trees per zone or so.
Yeah, about 2,000-ish, somewhere there on that.
So the goal each winter, starting probably in the next couple weeks through the winter season, is his staff getting out and trimming about 1/5 of the city trees each year. You want to talk a little bit, Travis, about accomplishments and some of the things that you've done with the foundation?
Sure. So last year, we ended up taking out, we got some, you guys graciously awarded us some contracts or some funding to get a lot of the ash trees removed off the streets. That turned out to be, what was it, 614 dead ash trees that we got removed off the terrace. Our in-house staff from 2020 to present has taken down about 460. So we've roughly gotten about 1,100 dead ash trees off the terrace in the past 3 years. Of that, I know just this past spring we planted 225 trees to start replacing it. We planted another 50 terrace trees this fall. The previous fall we planted like 150. So we're going back, we're systematically replanting them, trying to diversify the species and the locations so that we don't have pockets of any certain species so we don't run into this again. But needless to say, that takes up a lot of our time and a lot of our funding trying to chase ash trees and dead ash trees and that sort of stuff. We are still trying to treat some of them as well. So there's roughly 200 or so that we're trying to treat around town. Some of the bigger ones in Menominee Park, and then a few streets that are still lined with ash. We're trying to save some and, I guess, stretch out or keep them hanging around long enough to where they're not going to be burdensome when we try and take them down. But
I think Travis at this time has a bid out to also remove about another 225
Yes.
public trees. That would be in some of the parks, again, terrace trees, as well as Riverside Cemetery. So about another 225 this fall and this winter will get removed, and you'll see that coming to you for an award, I would expect in the next month or a month and a half or so. I think that covers a lot of the forestry. Again, on the personnel budget, there was a revision, and you should have received this. If you take a look at the horticulturist position, current actual is 1, and then we had, again, in our 255 budget, that 1 additional horticulturist position that's funded with our partners through the community. So it will show 2 as our current number again in this budget. So. I Don't know if there's any specific questions on the forestry budget. Again, taking a look at any of the increases, a lot of that's going to be bringing in one additional full staff. If not, I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to keep Travis here, actually, because he oversees the cemetery, so I'm going to make you jump just a little bit. The cemetery budget is on page 217. If we could go there. On the cemetery side, a couple of the accomplishments is we continued our historic cemetery tours. This is a program that we started doing jointly with the Public Museum last year. It was very successful, and so we continued it into this year. Again, I think all of those classes or those events fill up very quickly. Working with the museum staff, able to utilize some of their software programming for registering, and then they also, between the public museum staff and Donna at the cemetery, they take on the events and doing the program of those on weekends. So we'll continue those. We did hired a new landscape operations, a ground specialist out there, and then Travis and his team have been working on replacing some of the markers, the road markers throughout the cemetery. One exciting thing starting this year in the budget is we had a bequest in somebody's will at the Community Foundation. They enjoyed the trees in the cemetery so much that there's a fund now at the Community Foundation that will contribute $32,000 going forward to the cemetery fund. And that's primarily for care and replacement and removal of trees. So you're going to see in our estimate for this year's expenditure, you're going to see that was increased by about $32,000. It's a budget amendment we'll be bringing to the council in the next month to allow us to use some of the funds to do some of these removals that we were talking about at Riverside Cemetery. So you're going to see that $32,000 as a revenue going forward. So that was a really nice information to hear from the Community Foundation on somebody who thought highly of not only the cemetery, but the trees and the property out there. I don't know if there's anything in particular in any line items. This one's pretty static. There's not a whole lot of moving around of funds or anything. All right, if not, I'm gonna go back. We'll go to Senior Center, if we could have Dan come up. Senior Center revolving fund is on page 167. So again, at the Senior Center, a lot of the similar goals that we have throughout the department. We enhance our quality of life services and assets, provide a safe, secure, and healthy community, strengthen our neighborhoods. One of the accomplishments for this year was hiring of Dan. Back in July, Dan joined us. We did steal him from the YMCA. He's been a great asset to our department already. He was able to shadow Gene, the previous manager, for a couple of weeks. But he's jumped in and helped out with the budget, and I asked him to maybe give a little information on the programs and any other highlights that he would like to do. So if you want to start out with the accomplishments.
So last year, some of our biggest accomplishments were the implementation of the falls prevention program, coordinating with the fires department and a coalition of other involved entities throughout the community. We were able to get a very specialized piece of equipment towards that that was grant funded through the fire department that we have for our usage. We have screened over 150 individuals for falls to help identify and address some strategies that will impact their quality of life and hopefully lengthen their life. We did increase some of our environmental and nature-based programming, so trying to get folks engaged and informed about things in the out of doors, not just inside, and also leveraging some technology with some smartphone usage for identifying bird calls and some other interesting things like that. You can walk out and hit play and record, and it'll tell you what's chirping in the trees. And then we're expanding our partnerships and collaborations. Again, that's community organizations, higher education institutions, other organizations within the school district. So we can continue to offer a diverse amount of programming for folks in all the different walks of life that we serve. Should I talk about some of our stuff for this year yet, or no, or 24? So for 24, we're looking at trying to build on our track record of successful fitness programming and wellness programming. Calendar year, we average around 43,000 visits-ish to the center. About 54% of those are fitness-based, and a lot of that has direct bearing on reimbursement through the various Medicare programs. So we're looking to continue to build on that success and grow that, add some different varieties of classes. And then we're trying to also leverage some technology, utilization of technology to expand our footprint both within the center through offering diverse programming, everything from language classes to support groups to social fun, entertaining kind of stuff that will allow us to have a greater footprint both at the center, and then folks can do things at home, and we can still track that and monitor that utilization that way. And then we're trying to collaborate with other community organizations that are interested in serving their segments of the population. I know I've had some connections with the Hmong Community Center to try to bridge a gap there, and then we're also working on trying to bring some different language arts programs back to the center that have been missing for a couple of years. So that's something that's in demand that will hopefully help our diverse population a little bit.
For the new council members, you're going to see that there's two separate budgets for the senior center. One is this 201, the revolving fund. Really what this budget covers is a lot of program costs. It's a special revenue budget that gives Dan and his team flexibility to try new programs, knowing that they're going to bring revenue in to offset those costs. But it's really a program funding cost. If we look, and we can jump to the next senior center budget, which is on page 196. This one has more of the operations, the personnel costs, utilities, those other types of costs for the division. So if you take a look, a number of different accomplishments. I'll just kind of jump on some of these, and Dan, if you want to jump in again, that's fine. But for this year, they increased the number of part-time fitness instructors, again, to enhance the fitness programming. As Dan shared, about 54% of everybody that comes to the senior center takes part in some of the fitness programs. We did a remodeling of the front desk area at the north facility, gave us a little better control and monitoring of who's coming and going, as well as checking in participants through the software program. And that was a project that was really coordinated amongst a number of different departments between Chad and some of the park staff, Scooter with the electrical, Terry and John Urban's team with facilities. So a lot of that was done in-house. You want to talk about your 24 goals in this area?
So one of the services that we provide is a connection with health resources for seniors, specifically foot care. So one of our goals is to increase those offerings because our demand is already booking out several months into 24. So we've been working with our partners to ascertain their availability and expand that footprint. Also looking to add some additional programming. We've had asks for, like massage and some simple kind of things like that, but it's things that folks really want to get into. We're looking to try to reach out more, again, using technology to our younger seniors to try to get them engaged and into our system and programs at a sooner basis using some of the technology. And then in the north building, we have a region in that building called the Sawmill Cafe that is a little underutilized, and it used to be a social space, and we're going to try to bring some program and resources to that so that it can be an organic fit to when folks are already there. Just give them a place to connect with others that they may not have an opportunity to otherwise. So That's going to hopefully drive some more connectedness and help us fulfill our mission.
You'll also see on the revenue side that Dan and his team were successful in getting some additional funding from the Bader Foundation. The Bader Foundation, 2 years ago, I believe it was, provided the senior center a donation or a grant in the amount of about $151,000. That helped with the Connect with Tech program. Actually, came at a great time. It was just prior to COVID. We had some ideas on how we were going to use that funding, and it just so happened that the Connect with Tech was very useful for seniors, keeping them connected throughout the pandemic. And the program has really gone gangbusters, and the board members from the Bader Foundation came and actually saw the program in action. They talked to some of the participants and the instructors, and they were so much impressed with it that they are providing about $29,000 in support this year, and then $29,000 next year to help with continuing staffing that program, as well as some equipment. So you'll see that reflected in some of the revenue. And then the other big revenue source for the senior center is the partnership with the Friends of the Oshkosh Senior Center. They contribute about $75,000 a year through all their fundraisers they do with the Food Check Fridays and other fundraisers. So they support this operation by about $75,000. So really appreciate what they do for the community and keeping the senior population active. Any questions at all for Dan or I?
Go ahead, Paul.
You guys are talking about kind of partnerships and things that go hand in hand. One thing that I'm finding out myself is as you get older, your visits to healthcare go up. I'm trying to be a master of the obvious here, but have we ever done any or tried any partnerships with Aurora or Mercy to sponsor something or a class, I mean, whatever?
I actually have that meeting scheduled with Aurora for tomorrow.
Great idea, Paul.
So,
Wow.
yes, so yeah, I have some of my previous employment, I have contacts with some of those different organizations, and we're kind of reaching out and exploring, seeing where they're at, where we're at, what we can do. But you're spot on with your
I would
assessment
just
for
think that, I mean, this they would absolutely want.
Yeah.
They should be pounding down our door.
Yeah. Yeah, part of what I'm charged with is getting us out to those folks that really do want to be a part of that and beginning that conversation or growing it if it's there.
Great.
And we did have a rental of a portion of the senior center north building from other healthcare provider up until earlier this year, and then they pulled out for whatever reason. So Dan's also looking at some potential space rental that maybe you can get that network in there again and provide them access to our fitness center and some of those types of things as well.
Another thing, is I think, both of those facilities, I believe, they did before, I don't know if they do anymore, but they had a breast screening van, bus, whatever, that would go around to different places. And I just think that would be another place that would be an absolute perfect fit.
Yeah, I think there's a number of partnerships that we could look at, and whichever one we partner with or all of them.
But you guys do like a health or wellness fair where you bring in vendors from all walks of life, from physical therapy folks to medical folks, and help make people aware of some of the services in the community.
Yeah, that's correct. Annually, we do what we call a brain fitness fair, which is a little more geared at some of the mental acuity and some of the wellness and self-efficacy side of things. But we do have providers from different physical therapy, some of the different medical partners in town, some of the natural, organic kind of providers in town. And I hear all the time, I went there last year as a community partner, and this year I heard a lot of folks say they got so much out of that day that they can't believe they haven't heard that before. So it's clearly something in demand, and we have plans to continue and grow that.
And I think at its core, the fall prevention program is part of that, because I think the statistics demonstrate that if once a person has their first fall, that starts a series of problems health-related wise. And I think it's prevention is probably the first part of the cure.
We're actually working with, the coalition is working, and I don't know if Chief Stanley will touch on this in any of his remarks when those take place or if they have, but we're working with 211 Wisconsin to help fund, or find, I should say, find the resources in the right direction and the right order for those folks. Some folks, it's a physical thing, like it's a rug issue or it's a railing issue. Some folks, it's more of a medical, personal issue. And there's different stratifications among those. So we're looking to take what we've done with screening folks and expanding on that to say, okay, you've had this, let's have you do these things so you can improve your outlook, kind of wherever you fall on that spectrum going forward. That's what we're working on next year.
So, just a quick comment, if there's no other questions, you know, there is in the 231 fund, there is levy support coming in, the tune of about 393,500. It's up 40,000. I did get a call from a resident that saw the ad in the Herald. You know, it's 11%, which seems like a high number, but it's only 40,000. But it's looking at how we allocate salaries, the increase in 2023. We did a big adjustment for our class and compensation study, but we didn't adjust the levy in 2023 for this fund. So we're doing a little bit of catch-up, plus we have some money set aside for adjustments in 2024. That's in the miscellaneous pay category, but long story short, we did put some additional levy support in to the tune of about $40,000. But again, the levy supports a little over half of the total cost. Into the budget, we have a lot of other sources of gifts and donations and other revenue sources coming in, but it's still important for when you talk to residents that acknowledging that we do provide levy support for this.
Thank you. As long as Dan is here, I'm just going to have you jump to just a small fund. It's on page 257. What this really is, we call it a building fund. It's some fundraisers that took place a number of years ago, and we occasionally tap this fund just to make some facility improvements. So again, it's on page 257, and the goal that's listed in here, we need to update that project has been completed. So the goal for next year is we're looking to update the lighting system in the Oasis room. Right now, we don't have the ability to dim the lights and make it a little more inviting, or if it needs to be dimmer again for somebody's eyesight. But we're going to work with Scooter and his department to make some adjustments in the lighting there. So we're looking to transfer $3,000 out of this fund into again, one of Dan's other funds, just to get that project completed. So again, looking at alternative ways to fund some of these projects that take on there. That is it for Senior Center. So Dan, thank you. If you want to head out. The next one, we're going to jump into the Parks Revenue Facilities. This is the 255 fund that we referenced a little bit earlier, and Jenny will join us. Between Jenny and Chad, they oversee a lot of these areas. So we're on page 225. And I believe Denise and Russ's team provided you. This page is really a good snapshot of all these budgets that are on the variety of pages in the budget. And I'll come back to that after we talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments and then the goals. I'm just going to kind of go over a few items, and then I'll turn it loose to Jen and Chad to talk about some of the items. If you take a look under 23 accomplishments, educational program was expanded considerably this year. Jenny's got some numbers she can share with you about that. There's a number of the gravel paths that were within the zoo. Chad worked with our streets division to do some paving in there to make it improve the accessibility. The Bear Fox exhibit is being constructed, nearing completion, should be completed yet this fall. A number of the special events that we hold out there, some were relocated just based on the growth of those programs. And Jenny will talk a little bit about that. We moved those out to Sunnyview Expo Center, partnered with the county parks on the use of that facility, and it really made the event something that we could take on additional numbers. The Zoo Lagoon last winter we used for the ice skating rink, which really, I think, turned out very nicely. We were able to use the Lakefly Cafe as a warming house, selling some concessions and so forth. And if we get some decent ice weather again this year, Mike, we'll have ice skating and ice fishing out on the lake for the ice fishery. But we'll have ice skating on the lagoon again, hopefully inside the zoo.
Construction on the
Yeah, because we'll be able to come in the front of the zoo. That's the main entrance there. So that's the plan. Hopefully, we'll get some decent ice again. The Chief Oshkosh monument signs were installed and the rededication ceremony was held. And then we also had the self-service kayak locker that we installed in Millers Bay. That project, we had a agreement that we had to enter into with the provider of that, and those funds came from a fund that we have at the Community Foundation, as well as a donation from the Convention Visitors Bureau. And we get 50% of that revenue. It's shared with, as part of the agreement with the locker provider. So we'll get 50% of that revenue. I did take a look. We started the rentals right before Memorial Day. From what I saw on the dashboard, we had 235 rentals, which is about 20 rentals per month roughly. So we're hoping to see that program continue to grow. Jen and Chad, you want to talk a little bit about some of your events and other projects?
Sure. So for this budget here, like Ray mentioned, our Easter events that we had in the spring, we used to host those actually at the senior center, which we've definitely outgrown that facility. So we moved it to some of the schools, Webster being one of them, which obviously is no longer there. So we really tried to find a good partnership that we could host it there from year to year. So we reached out to Winnebago County, and they were happy to partner with us on that event, and it was wonderful this past year. We had it inside the Expo Center, the breakfast, and it was very spacious. You know, strollers could move around a lot easier, or anybody that needed handicap accessible, and we can definitely up our numbers. When we had it over at Webster, we had to only welcome so many people per hour, so we could only sell so many tickets. So out there, it's much nicer that we can kind of open it up and have a lot more space. And then we had the egg portion, the egg hunt outside in the barns and on the grounds, and again, a nice big space for the kids to run around and hunt for eggs. So that was new for this year, and that was really great. As far as our amusement center, we hosted 3 family events over there that we had sponsored with different community members, which were all really great turnouts, and families enjoyed them. For our Brews on the Bay this year, we hosted 6 of those, plus our Brews in the Zoo, which is supposed to be the Halloween event for adults. So the September Brews and also the Zulaween event, we had to move over to the Leach Amphitheater due to construction. And kind of Chad and I will be working on what next year is going to look like for that program. Again, we have really great sponsors, and people really enjoy coming out, partaking in the food trucks, trying the different craft beers, listening to the band. So those have really been great for our department. We'll just have to look at a different venue for 2024. We also, like Ray mentioned, our zoo education programs in the zoo. We had a new zoo education coordinator this year. She was a school teacher for 31 years, retired, and has decided it's just not really quite time for her to retire yet. So she was our educator this year, and she was amazing. So daily programs offered, we had 192 of them throughout the summer, with 4,780 people attending those. And those are small programs, like she might do a craft with the kids in the morning, she might do some type of animal demonstration, she might do a zoo tour. And then we also have what we call Wildlife Wednesdays, which we bring different places in. So we might bring boo bolts in, or we might bring the Wildlife Sanctuary in Green Bay. So just different groups that we bring in to us to kind of do education programs. So we had 10 of those in 2023, and we had 920 people attend those. So we have some good numbers last year compared to next year. Or I should say this year compared to next year, and just some really great programs she did, and took that zoo education program to a whole new level. So we're really excited about that, and excited to keep moving forward with that. So, and then, like Ray mentioned, the ice rink too, which was a partnership with the rec department. So we're again working. We had some partnerships this year with Winnebago County, some with the rec department, which is the school district. So we had a really great partnership with them for the ice rink down at Menominee, which we plan on doing again this year, to offer that for people to come in and skate. So that was a really great partnership as well. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a nutshell for that budget.
I'll just let Chad chime in on some of the maybe facility and projects if you have some stuff.
Yeah. I think we're very blessed with have a good crew of people that actually have a lot of knowledge and experience in doing some of our renovation for some of our projects. I know we highlighted the paving that we did down at the zoo with at the zoo paths down there, which was just about a hair over 800 feet. The ultimate goal of that whole facility is to get it open and connected, accessible around the entire perimeter, that we can open up some winter hours to do that for snow removal and things of that nature. Have people through the zoo throughout the course of the year coming through, and things are a little halted with everything at Pratt Trail, so that also halts other projects that we have going forward. So hopefully next year will be a better year into that area. Some other things with the zoo itself too. We got a lot of extensive fencing work that needs to take place, and you've probably seen in our CIP dollars that we've had some funds allocated for improvements on the city's behalf. We continue to work with other partners and sponsors on other developments for zoo exhibits and things of that nature, but the zoo is also a park. And now that people come through there, so hopefully we can keep up with some of those things too, and keeping that going and active here for people in the long run. The Reed's concession stand, for example, we had a very tired facility inside. We were able to rehabilitate that inside to make it more friendly for our staff, also for the appearance, and also in cooperation with the health department and some guidelines there with some things that took place. So other events that'll kind of take place throughout the course of the year as we get into the lake shore, which is part of this, as Ray mentioned earlier, that's falling into our parks general budget. But we have some challenges coming forward with how we're going to keep up with that facility and maintain things and work with the clientele, not knowing what our full rental policies will be with there. But it'll be a great entity to have in this park system to work with for the community, and looking forward to the challenges and the use that comes with that as well. So there's a lot happening. I think out of the 11 budgets within the 255 account, I think we do very creative thinking and planning to make things work with that. And I have to give Jenny a lot of credit to the sponsorships as she goes out and solicits every year to make sure our programs and our services come to a high level. When we get to doing our annual report for the Parks Department, and I know Ray highlighted earlier about our volunteer hours, we can't thank them enough for all they do for us to help our entities continue to be successful, and the retention we have for our volunteers that have come to a lot of different events to help out with has been outstanding from that. And Jenny puts a lot of work into that, along with Kathy Snell, our special events coordinator, coordinating some of those efforts for a lot of our events within this area. So it's a great venue to have, and I appreciate the cooperation to help us keep continuing in that direction.
So if you want to go to the summary sheet that was handed out, I think this is the best way to look at everything. You can see on the top each individual project that's included here. And I want to be respectful to Lakeisha's question on unity and community. And I think Russ and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a decision the council will be making if they want to include some funding for that event next year.
Yeah, before you go into that, Ray, I just want to make one quick comment. This 255 fund does not receive any levy support. So all the programs that you see in the budgets the 11 different budgets that Chad just talked about, what we're trying to do is provide a framework to have revenue meet the program expense. So we try to have revenue equal expenditures. And we can certainly answer any questions, but I think it's important to note that, whether it's the zoo, whether it's boat launch, whether it's the concession stands, what we try to do is match up our revenues to our expenses without any levy support. So this is our accounting method or tool to account for all these various programs that are not supported by levy dollars. So if you want to go through them, you can. But in total, you can look at any of the programs. We can answer any questions. So the top part is just all the revenue that's coming in, and the bottom part's the expenditures going out. And if I may jump in real quick, Lakeisha, I think the last year we had had a placeholder for a potential of another $12,500 in donations and another $12,500 of expenses. I'm not sure if that went out. I know we did provide the Dragon Boat Race with $4,600, and that was a leftover balance from the previous 3-4 council members. Yeah, Algo had their own program that they raised funds, that was leftover funds, that was, the council decided to turn over to the Dragon Boat race. So the 12.5 was a placeholder, and I don't even recall what it was, for additional donations and/or expenditures.
Yeah, I think that was, I mean, that was predate the Dragon Boat races. That sort of revived this event. But the Unity and Community, yeah, this was 12.5 that was plugged in for a number of years, and I think the actual numbers were 0.0. So the projected actuals on the expense side really should read 4,600, which is what we gave the group. So we, in terms of what for next year, I know they were gonna take a look at how they were doing, because they talked about perhaps taking some of their, I don't wanna say,
Proceeds?
yeah, maybe proceeds is the best word, yeah, where they're gonna take some of their proceeds and kind of put it back as seed money for next year, and I can't remember, I don't know if they've run their final numbers yet, if they've got that. I know you gave the report the other day, and more on the programmatic side, it was awesome, so, but I don't know financially how they did with everything.
I know they've run the final numbers, I'm not sure if they accounted for returning funds.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I think the intent was, whatever revenue was left in the fund, we'd make available for the following year. And that's essentially what the council approved. So I guess we need to find out from those guys if they have any funds, because programmatically, it was great. We talked that day about how well it was running. I saw Anne Marie the very next day, and her and Angie, and they were both very excited. It was a very well-attended program, and what can we do to continue it for next year? But we haven't put any levy funds in the past, so that's why I was asking. That was my first question. So, did they make any money? Do we have anything to look forward to? And I know you don't know, Ray. I'm just staring off to try to figure out the answer.
So did that answer your question, Keisha, on that? No, okay.
Do you know if they'll, another, will they require that big level of donation again this year? Do you have any sense to?
I'm not sure. The purpose of the question was just that it was my understanding if those funds were to be used, that they would be reimbursed if they had the proceeds.
Yeah.
They donated an amount to the Oshkosh Area School District, but I'm not sure that amount and what was left over.
Yeah.
How it was dispersed.
Yeah, any other questions on any of the other programs?
If not, we'll keep moving. The next one will be the leach account, which is on page 230. This is another account that receives a little bit of levy support, but is in its own special revenue fund. Again, taking a look at strategic plan goals, all the same here, the private partnerships, strengthening neighborhoods, and quality life assets. Some of the accomplishments, and Jenny can talk about any of these too, but the first June Dairy Day event was offered this year. New sponsor and partner. As far as some of the,
Yeah, if you can turn it, that'd be great, thank you.
as far as some of the facility maintenance, painting, and other things continued throughout the facility. And then our Tuesday night concert series took a little different twist this year, and I'll let Jenny talk about that and some of the other events.
Okay, so for the Leach budget, for our Tuesday night concert series, we have a sponsor who sponsors all of those, and we met with them. We had in the past had 6 concerts, and they were smaller concerts, kind of smaller bands. So for 2023, we had talked to them to see what they thought of having 3 larger concerts, which they were completely in favor of, with issues with staffing, and also because we do rely heavily on volunteers. And they're very busy as well, so we went with kind of 3 bigger concerts, which really was great. One of them unfortunately got canceled due to weather, but the 2 we had were really, really great nights. So being able to just kind of have a bigger band and put a little bit more of that sponsorship towards that band, then in turn we get more people to come down for that concert, rather than kind of having the 6 smaller ones where we have less in attendance. So that worked out really great this year, minus the the rain. We also had 3 movie nights that were all sponsored by community members, and again, one of those was canceled due to the rain. And like Ray mentioned, a new June dairy event, so that was a great event that we really made some new connections. We worked with the Dairy Promotions Group, 4-H, and Winnebago County Fair, so those were all places and partnerships that we haven't worked with in the past. So we kind of brought all those different groups together along with us, and had it sponsored to have it down at the Leach Amphitheater, and it was a great event, and we have lots of ideas going forward to next year, what we can kind of add in making those partnerships, ideas that they have as well to add to that event to make it even better for the community. We also had Touch a Truck, which we have sponsored for that event as well. We always draw on over 2,000 people for that event, which is a great day with lots of activities for the kids. And then we do the yoga at the Leach. So this year we hosted 4 yoga events. We partner with Inner Sun Yoga Studio. They come down and do the yoga down there in the evenings for 4 different nights. Again, something that the community loves doing, and it's a beautiful venue to do that down there. So that worked really well. So that's kind of a recap of all of our bigger events down there this summer.
Just quickly looking at goals for next year. As Chad and Jenny have talked about, we really rely on partnerships to make a lot of these events happen. Jenny was able to find those groups and those businesses willing to support those, so we'll continue to look for those opportunities. Then the other one we had on here was to update and expand the security system at the facility. I've already achieved that goal because we received some donations within the last couple of months that allowed us to update the camera system. We worked with our IT division, added some additional cameras. We have some additional cameras on the backside of our Leach facility now along the Riverwalk. So we were able to get that completed this year with some donated funds. So again, it's a pretty small budget. There is some tax levy support of about $23,000, I believe you'll see in the revenue side, but again, it's what we try to do is bring in sponsorships and fees and concessions to help offset the operations. So pretty small budget. If no questions, we're gonna keep rolling along. The next one will be our Pollock Pool, which is on page 239. Strategic plan goals remain the same throughout our area. Talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments and the goals. This is another one where we offered some yoga programs at the pool. We did have to replaster the lazy river. This facility was constructed in 2006, so with anything else, there comes some time to do maintenance, and we were finding that the plastering of the lazy river needed to be completed, so Chad worked on getting that done last winter in time for the summer. Jenny can talk a little bit about some of the 6 special events sponsored by, again, a community partner, Winnebago Community Credit Union. And then for the first time at the outdoor pool here, we worked with the Recreation Department to provide some swim lessons at the outdoor pool. The Recreation Department does offer swim lessons in some of their indoor pools. The new Recreation Director brought this idea forward. We worked with them to offer it for, I think we had 3 sessions?
Just one this year.
One session, but we're looking at expanding that next summer to allow some additional sessions of swim lessons there as well. If you take a look at 24, I'll let Jenny talk about, we're looking to do a partnership between the pool and the senior center, having some exercise programs down there for the seniors. And then we're looking at replastering of the leisure pool within the next year. And again, talking about the swim lessons, expanding that.
Yeah, so like Ray mentioned, it was a really great year for the pool, some things that we've been kind of working on through the years that we just haven't been able to bring together that we were this year. So we've kind of had different people requesting swim lessons at the pool, at the water park. You know, years and years ago, they did them there when it was just a pool. So this was, like Ray mentioned, the first year that we did that. It was 1 2-week session just to kind of test it out and see how their numbers were, if they were able to fill the swim lesson spots, and they definitely were. So we're looking at adding on another 2-week session for 2024. The way, again, working with the rec department through the school district, they do swim lessons in a lot of the indoor pools too throughout the summer. So we kind of have to work with them and figure out how to make it all work with her pool of instructors, having them indoor and outdoor. But we are going to be able to add another session on, which will be great. I think people will really enjoy that for 2024. And this was the first year we also partnered with the Inner Sun Yoga Studio to do yoga at the pool in the evenings, and that went well. We did get some questions and requests about offering those in the morning. A lot of times, the people who come and do lazy river walking or lap swim, they sometimes are seniors, and morning is their time that they feel great to get up and get out and do things. So we definitely want to add some of those yogas in the morning in 2024, and then continue having them some for in the evening when people are getting off work. And then we offered 6 special events and as well as 2 kids camps that we do with a sponsorship from Winnebago Community Credit Union. So we have a kids camp that's for 3 to 5-year-olds, and then one that is for 6 to 9-year-olds, and that they're each a week long, and we do them from 10 to 12 in the morning and do different fun activities with the kids. So it was a very exciting year at Pollock with lots of new things this year and continuing to grow them and try some new things next year. We were. Actually, the lifeguards this year, which is typically what we struggle with through the rec department, they were filled before we were. So we hired the concessions, admissions, and maintenance staff. And typically, we don't have. It takes a while, but we get there. But this year, as far as the guards go, she was able to fill her spots before we were. And we have some kids that they have to work in multiple locations to make things work. So they might work, at the Lake Fly Cafe and at the pool. And but yeah, we didn't have any closures or anything like that this year. Any times we had to shut things down. So yeah.
Just to give you an idea, the pool attendance, we average probably between 40 and 46,000 visitors each year, so pretty much in that area. Just a couple things on the budget, as Russ talked about in some of the other, the senior center, if you take a look at the tax levy, there is tax levy support for the pool. We did request an increase this year. It's been at $64,000 for quite some time. We requested to move that up to $100,000, and a lot of that comes back to the staffing. I think the recreation department had to increase their lifeguard salaries this year in order to be successful. And so we're seeing an increase in costs that they bill us back for. So we needed to see some increase. We have increased some of the admission fees the last couple of years, and we really weren't comfortable continually raising fees to help offset that. So.
And also paying for that staff's training. Pretty much, if you don't pay for their training, they're not going to come work for you. So, and those costs have been going up for trainings as well. So we also have to cover those costs.
Yeah, that's I think one of the perks that's helped the recreation department recruit staff is we do pay for their training, so that helps them as well. And then you'll take a look, this is also a fund where we do have a endowment at the community foundation. When they did the construction of the pool, part of what they did was raised over $1 million additional for ongoing maintenance. And so we do tap that fund, as we said, for the replastering. It's close to $400,000 and $500,000 over those couple of years. And so we do tap that funds for some of those major maintenance items, which again helps us on this budget without having to come back for additional tax levy supports. You'll see those in our donations account as well. Yes, sir.
Ray, one last question. Can you give the status of the splash pad at Salt Park? I heard there was some issue. Is it even there anymore? Or is it, so I think someone was saying that it gets kind of, it's supposed to be wet on the bottom, but then it gets slippery. People are having some slipping issues, or what's the status of that?
I'm going to let Chad address that one. So.
Just so I heard your question, slipping on the surfacing, is that correct?
Yeah, there'd
that
be
you
like
had?
a mold or something that would form on the bottom of the whatever surface that was, and it would get slippery in spots.
In the past, a few years ago, it had a rubber surface on the on the pad itself, and we actually removed that because
Okay.
it did collect
It
a lot of
would've been
algae
passed on.
and cause problems. But that,
Right.
that has moved on, and it's just a pure concrete base that's there, that was underneath there. I mean, it's smooth enough to work with. You will, in different time periods, have algae buildup, but we'll go through and clean and pressure wash those areas to help keep that down. Consider if you go through the extended dry periods, per se, and a high use. So, but as far as the slippage, that's some things we do get caught in advance with people who notify us, and we go take care of it. So it works out pretty well from that nature.
So it's up and running and.
Yep, yeah.
It's probably reached its tired stage. I think, was this constructed in 2000-ish?
2004 or 6.
So early 2000s, and so we work as much as we can, again, with Scooter and his team to get parts as much as we can. Getting parts is a little more difficult, so we keep it operating the best that we can, but it's probably something near future that we're gonna be coming back here, looking at what do we do with that facility. And again, it's in the master plan too.
Wading pool.
That's it.
Bring back the wading pool back in the day when I was a little kid back in the 30s.
Yeah, unfortunately, the codes have changed so much as far as staffing and,
City manager will pay for it.
At 2.1.
so. Any other questions? If not, we're gonna move on to the last one, and I'll ask Travis if he's still here. This one is on page 283. It's the Street Tree Memorial Fund. And really what this fund is we have a memorial tree program and a memorial bench program. Both of those programs are budgeted here. And in the last couple of years, this is where we've been doing a lot of the emerald ash borer contracted services from as well. So you'll see in here, there's some transfer from other funds. That's really where the council decided to pay for some of the, mainly the removals of the public ash trees. So that's some of the larger numbers. We are not requesting a large transfer next year. I think we're gonna wait and see, once we get through this major removal that we're gonna be taking on over the next couple of months. And then Travis has been tracking some additional potential, but I think we're in-house, we're trying to keep up as best as possible too. One thing I do wanna make you aware of, if you take a look at the 9/28/23 latest version, you'll see the $150,000 transfer from other funds. This is something that we've been working on with a couple of our partners that would like us to take a look at beautifying the roundabouts. I think Travis can speak to this. He's been working with this group as well as I. When the plantings were originally done with, when the DOT did the projects, the plantings were done pretty tightly. It didn't allow for much room for maintenance, and that's the reason for some of these looking overgrown. I'm specifically talking 21, those medians, mainly on the east side of 41. So there's a number of interested individuals in the community, including Convention Visitors Bureau, Community Foundation, a few other partners. They're asking the city to contribute $150,000 towards basically doing some replanting of the roundabouts. They'd really like to beautify the city entries. They're looking to raise an additional, right now, we've had an estimate from a landscaping firm. We're gonna keep some of the plants that are in there, but then remove some, add some river rock from some stone, get rid of some of the mulch, which makes it a little more difficult for us to maintain and keep the weeds down. But those individuals are looking to do the additional fundraising. We're looking at about a $230,000 to $250,000 project to do all the city roundabouts that are within the city's jurisdiction. So there's 12 different roundabouts that we're looking to partner with. And we felt that it's something that we are interested in because our team maintains all those roundabouts. If we can do something upfront to beautify, but also help us down the road on maintenance, we thought it's something we wanted to bring to this group and try to get your support on that too.
And when I had given you a fund balance report, this, the 250,000 in the prior year was taken right from fund balance because that was, Emerald Ash Borer was just hitting us and that was our way of responding. It was one-time money without taxing, because we'd already taxed for it once. So that was kind of the idea, and I think that's kind of what you're hoping in this
Correct.
time? Okay.
Yes. I think that's what we talked about, yes.
We don't have this currently in the general fund, though. I just want to point that out. We don't have it identified for transfer, but that's what they're proposing here, and I think you're really waiting to see what this group does, right, if they come up with,
Yeah, and they're actually waiting for us. I think if they get the assistance from the city, they're willing to take a look at getting the additional funding, so.
What's the cost?
Estimated between 230 to 250. Again, you know, we're looking to hopefully maybe do this in spring, so things may change a little bit by then, so that's roughly the range we're working on.
Is that total or cities cost?
This is the 150 would be the city's cost. The total's 230 to 250-ish.
You gonna borrow this? Gonna borrow this, Mark?
no, this is an example of where we could use our excess fund balance, so we wouldn't have to tax for it at all. We don't have specifically identified, Ray's bringing it up now just to kind of get it out there, and this may be an appropriate use of the fund balance. Again, one-time expenditures, that's where I think if we're going to use our fund balance, our excess fund balance for anything, should be for those one-time things. Less borrowing, not borrowing at all, just using cash for some of these expenditures. That's exactly what we did when we funded the 250 for the Emerald Ash Borer, because that was, that was a once in a generation type of thing.
As I spoke to earlier, we do have a memorial bench and a memorial tree program. We're finding that getting benches, the bench companies are having trouble getting that raw material. When we have somebody buy a bench from us, there's been times where it's taking over 13 to 16 months before we get those benches, which we take, and rightfully so. The customer is asking where the bench is, and we're kind of stuck in the middle saying, we're at their mercy because we just can't get the benches. We've moved to a different bench provider, somebody here in Wisconsin, that we're finding the same issues with right now, yes. We're finding that we are not getting benches, and we're kind of caught in the middle. So internally, we're talking maybe of just taking an interest list at this point, if people are interested in that program, and holding off taking orders until we're getting some better response on those products. It just really puts us in a bad situation. That's the end of my budgets. So if there's anything in general, overall, feel free, or you know how to get a hold of me.
I don't know if you want to talk about the fund balance as it relates to the roundabouts right now, or when is it appropriate? time?
Really not noticed to talk about that, right?
It's within the realm of what you guys are talking about. I think that's, eventually we take direction and bring it up at a future meeting, at our, either after the, budget hearing next week, and then final direction. So, if that's something you want to talk about, we can, as we start preparing that final amendment thing, those are the types of examples that we would do that with. So you can talk about them today as a potential thing. I've got a note here as well, because Ray did talk to Russ and me about it, but we didn't put it specifically in there. But that's exactly what I was thinking about when I talked about you can use fund balance for one-time purchases.
We've got time now, Ray's still here if you want to. Fund balance, ARPA, either one's an appropriate use for a project like that. Quite honestly, yes. Are the roundabouts, in my opinion, overgrown and not very pleasant to look at? Yes, but $250,000 worth of landscaping is just not very fun to fund, quite honestly. I know it's 20 grand it's roughly what, 20 grand a pop, but whatever you can do to reduce the long-term maintenance, I know we've chatted for years on how underfunded our parks department is. I think I've gone every budget cycle saying the amount of unfunded mandates that we give Ray and his staff continue to mount.
And that's really what we're looking at, it is the long-term maintenance. One of the other things that the plan calls for on those medians on Oshkosh Avenue, obviously east of 41, with our staff, just finding a safe, reliable place to pull vehicles off in order for us to do maintenance is very difficult. So what Travis is doing is, in one of the longer medians, actually making an area where it's going to be concrete, where they can pull a truck off into the median, out of traffic in a safer area. So we're looking at the maintenance side as well as safety of the staff and some of this stuff as well. Because it's very, very difficult to get in there any time of the day to do that safely. We just recently had another inquiry from somebody who would like to do some volunteering, and they suggested maybe doing some maintenance in the roundabouts, and we highly discourage that. And our own staff, we're fearful at times to put them out there, so. But I agree, it's a large chunk, but I think, again, long-term maintenance, and I think it would really beautify a lot of the entries coming in the area that can be overgrown at times.
What kind of time frame would that give us for that, 150,000 from us, whatever, 230 all in? Like, how long would that sustain them looking nice?
As long as we can stay on top of the maintenance, and I think if it becomes easier, we can do that. This is really one of those areas that the partnership we have with the CBB on that horticulturist position, this was one of those focus areas. The flower pots downtown, the green spaces downtown, but then roundabouts. And so we have one specific staff member who is routinely going around picking up trash, checking for maintenance on the roundabouts. So I think now that we've got that in place, I think it's going to be a lot easier to extend. Again, getting rid of some of the mulch and putting in the decorative river rock will help us to keep the weed growth down and just to keep the plants in a little more compact area.
Well, it sounds like, Ray, the foundation, that group would match about 50 cents for every dollar we put in. If it's 150 from us, they'd put in another 75 to 100.
I think we're looking at 80 to 100-ish. Again, we're trying to make sure we have a little bit of room in there for not coming in under budget or over budget. We want to make sure we've got a little bit of contingency in there as well, so.
Bernie, I'm thinking about, I think this is a county project, when South Park, the median, over by Carpet Land. There's all brick pavers in there. I think this is absolutely insane. The brick pavers in there, then those got ripped out because they were all uneven. Then we put some trees or something, that all got ripped out. So it's just every 3-4 years we're spending money on putting stuff in there that just doesn't work. So I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to really analyze this to death, but what are they looking to do in there? I mean, I think like you're saying, I mean, is this going to be sustainable? Are we going to do this every 2 years or?
I don't see us doing this every couple of years. I think, again, once it gets down to a manageable level, we have the staff member, a dedicated staff member that's taking a look at that. What we would be doing if we got this funding, we would finalize some of the design plans that we've been working on conceptually, and we can bring that forward to the council and share that. We're looking also, if it is a project that moves forward, possibly sharing it with any potential donors that would be looking to support it as well.
I'd be more than happy to take a look at it, but I guess I'm with the mayor at $20,000 a crack. I don't know. I just don't want to see the benefit there.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to just know more about how, I mean, is it like the style of plantings that you'll be using that kind of helps? Is it more like?
A lot of it is with the spacing. The roundabouts are just jam-packed, and so they collect a lot of garbage. It's hard to get around and treat for weeds and all that kind of stuff. So we're basically just going to take a lot of the undergrowth, a lot of the grasses and the shrubs out and replace those. Space them a little bit better, use some different varieties, some that don't catch trash and stuff as much, just to make the actual maintenance of it cleaner and quicker, so that it's easier for us to continue to maintain and looking nice.
Sure.
If nothing else, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rick.
Go ahead, stretch.
Next one's hard.
I brought candy.
Never mind, it's gonna be great.
Oh, you've got those new ones here? You can take one and pass it down if you want. What's that? They do, thank you.
Beware of new department heads who bring candy to the budget workshops.
The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.
Yeah, I think mine will be pretty quick.
If he's listening.
I'm sure he's listening.
I'm gonna text him now.
The city manager has us trained. That's how we know we're enough next.
Well, welcome, your first budget hearing.
It is, thank you. Thanks, I'm glad to be here. If you have any questions, feel free to shout out. The budget of both the city clerk and elections I've inherited. So I'm just kind of going status quo right now. We made a couple of adjustments on some things, and I'll get into that. We'll hit city clerks first. I know you guys did receive some personnel updates. So originally it said that we only had 3. We actually have 4 full-time personnel, 2 elections clerk, our specialist, deputy clerk, and then myself. So that's the personnel side of the clerk's office. We're going to promote our transparency and continue what we're doing, being a public service for residents and citizens of Oshkosh. If they have any questions, we're here to help. Also, if anybody's deciding to run again for council, that you'll, if your seat is up, come on down to see us. We have all the paperwork and everything ready to go December 1st. We did a little bit of revamping on our budget for the department. Mainly it's personnel and salary. We cut down a little bit on, I'm sorry, it's page 69. Thank you. We cut down a little bit on, office supplies, things like that. We do have an abundance of those items, so we did cut down on our budget. We should be okay for next year. So it's pretty standard. I did keep employee training and development, although next year will be kind of crazy with 4 elections. I did keep it in the budget. Hopefully, we have some time in the summer for some training and conferences for some of our staff members. But if you have any questions on clerk's department, I'm here to answer them for you. And then we could.
Are you liking clerk?
So far, so good. Ask me next year.
I almost want to ask how many.
Yeah, exactly. Next year, end of November. We're all very excited. So if that's a great leeway into the elections budget. My staff is very confident. Becca's been through a couple. She's the deputy clerk. Caroline has been a poll worker for the last 9 elections, so she has a lot of insight of what's going on. So Crystal and myself are the newbies on the block, but we're ready to learn, and we're all excited. Well, we don't know what to expect, so, but they're excited, so it's leaning into us, so we're getting excited. So we're looking forward to it. What we did with the elections budget, we just kind of looked through the last 2 presidential elections and went off of them. In regards to poll workers, that's heavily of what our salary is going to come through. Poll workers, advertising, signage, things like that. An exciting thing that we're looking at for 2024, you'll be seeing it on the agenda coming up soon, and I'll be asking you to pass it. We're looking at changing our early absentee voting location. In the past, we've done it in City Hall downstairs. It kind of gets crazy with parking, people. Staff has a hard time maneuvering the first floor. So our building over on 19, we have storage there. So we got the best part of the building. It's kind of got some office space, and it's painted and carpeted. So we're looking at moving our early absentee voting to over there. So that's one of the goals that I'm looking for 2024. So
Where is this?
something new.
It's at the corner of Irving and Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep.
Yes, you will. The building's painted, it looks really nice. Facilities is taking care of it. It used to be an electronic service center.
Audio Plus.
Yeah, so it's ADA accessible, there's enough parking.
Bus stop near there?
I believe there is one close. So that'll be nice. So fingers crossed that works out. We're going to look at starting for April or February primary and April spring election, see how it goes. But otherwise, on our budget, we increased a little bit on the personnel. Previous to this, they had one of our election specialists under elections. We now put all our full-time people in with the clerk's office, and any elections personnel that we hire will be long-term, temporary, poll workers, part-time, things like that. Any questions?
It's like the best we've had all day.
I guess I could ask for Mayor Mugerauer.
She brought candy, what do you eat?
Yeah.
Makes you feel better.
I could ask for Mayor Mugerauer how many liquor licenses we have left on the shelf. So.
No, he only asked that when we hand one out, but
We approve.
we're still at 4.
One question, so you rolled out, I think during the interim, Jesse helped roll out the Badger books.
Yes.
Anything you want to talk about those? That was a little bit of a change.
Well-
We rolled a couple of them out and.
Thank you for bringing that up. We did, they did last year do 4 Badger books, just to kind of test it.
They may not know what those are too.
Those are electronic poll books. Thank you very much. So instead of you walking up to the counter and having the book upside down and a process of looking up your name, signing in the box, getting your number. This is all that information is on our Badger books. It makes processing a lot faster. It makes the end of the night a lot faster. During the day, you keep up with your numbers and make sure you're all matching with how many you have voted, how many have registered, how many have come in. So it does make the process a lot smoother. We do anticipate using all of them in 2024 for all elections. So that's our goal.
Rolling them out to all locations?
All locations. Yep, we're going to use them.
Good.
That? How? I could have phoned it in. No, I'm kidding.
No,
Oh,
we
thank
wouldn't have had the candy then.
That's right.
Feel free to come down if you have any questions. I'll see you guys all soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. Probably just take a break.
No, that's for you guys. All afternoon, help yourselves.
We're gonna take a, maybe a 10 to 15-minute break while we wait for police to gather and show up. So we'll maybe bring it back at 2:45.
Oh.
The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at
The Oshkosh Police Department. Floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As you see in front of you, I didn't bring candy, but I did bring you data. I brought you a copy of our 2022 annual report. I hope that provides you some information as the activities that we're kind of going to talk about a little bit here today. Again, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you to discuss the police department's proposed operating budget for 2023. I want to highlight some of the initiatives that we've accomplished or are working on this year. Our staff development is incredibly important, especially in these challenging times. Training our police officers and our leadership on the best practices of law enforcement is the forefront of the work that we do administratively. By planning for training in the upcoming year, we are able to prepare our officers with the best tools available in law enforcement. This in turn provides the most professional police officers that we can for our citizens here in the city of Oshkosh. The department's strategic plans are training based on the needs facing the department each year. There are several mandatory trainings that we must perform in order to meet the mission of law enforcement in the community. These are mandated to us by the state, so we have to ensure that we provide these trainings to our officers either on an annual basis or a semi-annual basis. Some of these trainings are de-escalation training, implicit bias training, use of force, crisis intervention, response to mental illness, emergency vehicle operations, as well as professional communication. In addition, we have other skills training needs that we must provide in order to provide a professional law enforcement agency. As we do our trainings, simply if we just provided the 24 hours worth of training that's mandated annually by the state, we would not have a professional police department as we currently have. We provide training in instructor development, field training officers, drone pilot training, crisis negotiators, firearms instructors, SWAT team training, hostage negotiator training, drug investigator, criminal investigation, school resource officer training, first line supervisor training for emerging leaders, as well as leadership training for department leaders. All this training requires funding and resources that we must provide in order to be successful in the coming year. In 2022, we expanded this training by adding virtual academy online training, which is similar to what some of you may be familiar with in a college setting. We also have incorporated virtual reality training, as in, a couple of you, I believe, have tried our virtual reality out. We also had a donation of virtual reality training from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Thank you to the city manager for that. We continue to have numerous occasions where our officers have been able to use their crisis intervention training as well as their de-escalation training to bring situations to a safe resolution. In October of this year, we were able to send an additional 10 officers to crisis intervention training. In 2024, we'll be expanding our offering to help those in mental health crisis by offering crisis intervention partners training. This training is modeled after the training component of CIT. CIP is designed for wide-ranging audiences interested in better understanding and improving interactions with people who experience mental health crisis. Participants include correctional officers, 911 dispatchers, emergency personnel, hospital staff, teachers, social workers, and many, many more. You see, mental health crises are not exclusive to just law enforcement. Helping those in a mental health crisis takes a community effort. The department conducted our second Youth Leadership Academy over the summer. This program is designed to bring teens together throughout our community who need someone to believe in them, just that one leg up, as well as teens who are excelling in their academics together, along with our school resource officers who designed the program. Through this academy, the teens learned about our community. They received leadership pointers from the CEO of Oshkosh Defense. They toured Oshkosh Defense facilities. They had the opportunity to work with younger children at the Boys and Girls Club. They also learned about giving back to the community through volunteerism through community projects. Our academy attendees had presentations on leadership styles, team building and communications, engaging, empowering others, as well as conflict management and perception. We received great feedback from both the parents and the students on the impact that this academy had on their youth. There's nothing better than to walk into this academy in the very beginning, and I'm sure all of you have experienced where you get strangers in the room and they don't talk to each other, they don't even look at each other, and by the end of the week they're high-fiving each other, laughing, exchanging phone numbers because now they have new friends. And that's what this really is about, is bringing our youth together. The department continues to partner with the Kiwanis Club on the Reading with the Cop program. Several times a year, you'll find police officers attending classroom settings in school or at the Boys and Girls Club, where the officers read with the kids and also connect through simple conversations. We maintain a strong partnership with the Boys and Girls Club throughout the year, supporting them creatively through initiatives that benefit our youth. You may or may not have heard about our Step Up program, but we have officers that actually go into the Boys and Girls Club and do mentor opportunities with kids. On a monthly basis, we'll go in and sit and just talk with the kids, maybe help with homework, maybe just help them through some family conflict. That's interactions. It's an additional moment where we get to build into our youth in the community. Our community closet continues to receive support from the community with donations. We use our closet to help those with immediate needs for things such as clothes, toiletries, food, car seats, as well as other basic need items. This is incredibly helpful for our victims of crimes such as domestic abuse. I spoke with you last year about our relationship with the warming shelter. We have been working with the warming shelter as well as our homeless population to help them day to day, as well as balancing the requests of our citizens who have concerns related to our homeless population. We have spent one-on-one time with our homeless population trying to provide help to them based upon available services. The homeless issue is not a police department issue, nor is it a day-by-day warming shelter issue. It's a community issue that we all must work on together. The homeless population within the city is growing. The city must begin to work with our community partners to develop programming and responses to the various needs of our homeless. As of October 26th, the police department has responded to 552 calls for service this year regarding homelessness. They range anywhere from proactive policing, where we're patrolling areas and we're finding homeless folks who, frankly, they're just not allowed to sleep where they're sleeping at, to calls for service where there's been some vandalisms, there's been some larcenies, there's been fights, there's been disagreements, and we're just responding to those calls for service. Now, this 552 calls for service actually equates to roughly about 1,100 calls for service, as many of these calls require 2 officers to respond. So that takes 2 officers off the street to answer these calls. Anecdotally, we had one officer this year who was attacked by a homeless person's dog and spent several days in the hospital and several weeks out of their regular duty assignment recuperating. Last year, I shared with you that the city had approved of several housing options for our homeless population. and that this had the potential to invite more homeless persons to our community in the future. We have seen this occurring now in our community. And mind you, it's not the fault of the resources that we have in the community. There's no fault at all. It's just we have resources. And communities that don't have the resources are sharing our resources with others. We have to be prepared to provide fair and equal services to all of our community, but be mindful of the limits on providing services, even more services, to our homeless population. Homelessness is a problem that's rooted in many cases. I believe that the most prevailing cause of homelessness is mental health and substance abuse issues. We as a city should lead the effort in bringing together those community partners, both public and private, to work on reducing our homeless population with meaningful actions that do not just provide temporary shelter, but long-term solutions to resolving an individual's cause of being homeless. There's a lot of long faces in here. I'm sorry for giving you the bad news of this stuff, but it is a part of our community, and that's what we do. Mental health crises also occur in our community. Our police officers, day in and day out, do an outstanding job of negotiating these crises. On October 1st of 2021, the department's first behavioral health officer began his new assignment. This officer was selected from our current patrol after a selection process that involved Winnebago County Human Services. With the addition of our behavioral health officer, we also have a co-funded social worker that, thank you to council for helping fund that. That's a partnership that we have with Winnebago Human Services, where they provide half funding for our social worker, and the city has picked up the other half funding. Our co-responder team through July of 2023 has responded to 931 mental health-related calls for service. This is a 228% increase from 2022. By having this team respond, they have been able to relieve the patrol officers on 760 of these calls. Our co-responder team has been able to provide follow-up on 490 of these calls to provide additional resources to those in need. This has been a great help to our patrol officers and allows them, once again, to return to work on doing additional criminal investigations. Many of you know Magic, our therapy dog. She may be on the front page or in several pages of the annual report. Magic's been deployed 283 times on these calls for service. That's a 180% increase over 2022. As you can see, mental health issues within our community are still very prevalent. And I could add another team, another co-responder team, and I keep both teams busy throughout the year. I reported to you last year during our budget meeting that we had 10 overdose deaths in the city through July of last year. Through September of 2023, we have had 22 overdose deaths in the city of Oshkosh alone. This is a 120% increase from last year. We also have 3 more deaths that are pending toxicology reports that may add to this total. Every officer in the street, as well as the fire department, is equipped with Narcan. If this were not the case, our overdose deaths would be tremendously higher. Fentanyl is the lead cause of overdose deaths in Winnebago County. Our Vice and Narcotics Unit has been working hard to go after drug dealers and human traffickers and have been very successful, but there's more work to be done. The Oshkosh Police Department is also a participant in the Lake Winnebago Area Metropolitan Drug Unit, or LWAM. If you're not familiar with LWAM, that's a collaboration of the 4 counties in the Fox Valley. That would be Outagamie County, Winnebago County, Fond du Lac County, and I'm missing one more. Calumet County, yes, thank you. Each law enforcement agency that participates in LWAM also adds an officer to that to act as an investigator. So they do regional drug investigations in all 4 counties. It has a tremendous impact on those who would traffic drugs within all of our communities. A sobering statistic received at our most recent board meeting was that in 2019, LWAM seized 26.2 grams of fentanyl. In 2022, LWAM has seized 7,350 grams of fentanyl. It's an astronomical increase of what's coming into our community. You may or may not know, but the Drug Enforcement Agency says that 2 milligrams of fentanyl can actually kill you. And we've seized 7,300 grams of fentanyl just last year. I reported to you last year that property crimes were an area of concern for us. Through the efforts of our police officers and our citizens, we are seeing a decrease in many of our Part 1 offenses through July of this year. Motor vehicle thefts are down 35%. Burglaries are down 12.3%. Larcenies are down 2.5%. Non-categorized stolen property offenses are down 75%. Crimes against persons are down cumulatively 1.9% from 515 to 505. There are 33 index crimes that are reported to the FBI. Overall, our index crimes in the city are showing a decrease of 2.1%. Your police officers are doing an exceptional job. If you see one, thank them for the work that they're doing, please. An area of concern for us is the emergence of more white-collar crimes, both in volume and impact. We're hearing more of senior citizens being impacted by thefts by others who would prey on them. We're also seeing corporate thefts occurring on a large scale. In 2022, a company here in Oshkosh was defrauded of over $600,000 in one case. In 2023, we saw this again with another company being victimized by a theft of over $600,000. These are typically multi-state investigations that require many hours to successfully solve. We recently investigated a report of a volunteer organization secretary who embezzled $60,000 from the organization. We received an alert earlier this year of a person in Prescott, Wisconsin, who was scammed out of $433,000 from their savings and their retirement fund. Local businesses are being scammed for account numbers. Russ actually had one occur to him. I actually had somebody write a check in my name and send it to me, ask me to cash it from a bank account in Beloit. In 2022, we saw 271 fraud investigations. For 2023, we're on pace to have over 363 fraud investigations reported here in the city, or a 33.94% increase just in fraud investigations. From 2019 to 2022, we've seen a 48.4% increase in frauds overall, but that doesn't tell the whole story. When we receive a fraud investigation report, we currently have to triage the investigation and are essentially looking for those that have a high level of solvability factors. We're looking for the low-hanging fruit. With the other investigations that come in, we are just not able to devote the time and resources to ones that we could potentially solve, but require more effort. In 2022, we only actively investigated 37 fraud cases out of the 271 that were reported. In addition, there are other crimes committed that target our seniors. These crimes include elder abuse and neglect in nursing homes, assault of seniors, financial exploitation of elderly victims, theft and robbery of seniors by strangers and family members. We also work to go after those who would prey on our children. From 2021 to 2023, we're averaging 35 internet crimes against children investigations here in the city. Those are completed as we can get to them. We don't actively have a unit right now that can go after those. As we find free time and we can actively work on those, then we'll work on those investigations. We're seeing an increase in the use of digital currency, such as crypto, Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay, and other digital currency apps that are used to further criminal acts throughout the area. This is not just a Fox Valley problem, it's also a problem throughout all of law enforcement, and we cannot be caught behind on this. This is an emerging issue that in law enforcement we have to figure out a way to combat. We need to be doing more, but just don't have the personnel to get these investigations completed. Beginning this year, the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department announced that they would no longer be responding to calls for service in the county as a primary responder on highways that were served by local law enforcement. So essentially, we have taken over a portion of enforcement on I-41 that last year the Sheriff's Department was handling. Based upon this, the Oshkosh Police Department took on the increased call response on the I-41 corridor that runs through the city. In 2021, our officers responded to an average of 4,090 calls for service a month, which equated to 49,087 calls for service for the year. In 2022, our officers responded to an average of 4,410 calls a month, which equates to 52,922 calls for service for 2022. Through July of 2023, our officers are responding to an average of 4,855 calls for service a month. This will set a record for volume of calls for service for the police department at 58,265 calls a year. It's a 10.1% increase from 2022 and an 18.7% increase from 2021. On average, 26% of our calls for service are considered high-risk calls. These calls require more than one officer to respond. Applying this factor to our calls for service equates to a more accurate number of approximately 6,117 calls for service. Adding the 25% of calls that require more than one officer to respond equates to 73,407 calls for service a year. These numbers do not account for the various requests from citizens regarding our neighborhood concerns, our programs that we participate in, and of course those calls that our officers receive that do not generate a traditional call for service. Our civilian employees support the work of our sworn staff as well as members of our community. Each citizen contact and report that an officer completes generates a corresponding civilian staff response. We will generally have a record of every interaction that we have. I share this with you to help you frame the information regarding open records requests. I currently have 3 staff allocated to process the open records requests for the department. We're averaging over 900 open records requests a month, or 10,800 requests a year. These requests can range from a simple request for a crash report to an extensive request of multiple records, multiple reports, and records of specific incidents, as well as different mediums. Each of these requests have to be handled on a case-by-case basis, ensuring that we're following our open records laws, victims' rights laws, and various other statutes and legal opinions that we must follow. Additionally, a request for records such as body camera video takes extensive time to facilitate these protections outlined in our statutes. As an example, one request for a copy of body cam video takes 1.5 times the length of the video just to handle the redactions that are required. One request for 1 hour of video would take 1.5 hours to process this. There are multiple officers on scene. Each officer's video has to be viewed and redacted. So a request where there are 5 officers on scene for a major event would take 7.5 hours to process that one request. That's 1 full day's of work for one employee to process one request. Now, our operating budget is generally a level request for non-personnel related costs. As a note, 97% of the police operating budget is personnel and fleet costs. Our revenue is generally static with a slight increase for some future events that we believe are coming in 2024. We have a generally flat expense side of our budget with contractual increases, as well as the new interfund chargebacks that are now included in our budget. Various line items have movement of dollars from one line item to another with very little overall impact. Motor vehicles, as everyone knows, are increasing in cost, and the timing of acquisition of these vehicles is really a challenge for us. Now, I've kind of gave you a lot of heavy stuff. I get it, I understand it, but now I'm open for any questions you might have regarding our budget request.
Looking at the personnel
Yes.
stuff here, so it looks like you guys are down 5 officers, 2 sergeants. You're looking for.
We are actually, by the end of this year, going to be committed to be fully staffed. We have offers of employment out to all of our officers, and that's a ever-changing number. For instance, this year, because my assistant chief's retiring in January, the city manager allowed me to promote an extra captain because I needed some bench strength. So I'm working on giving them some on-the-job training, and then next year we'll be pulling back from having 3 captains and only having 2 captains, but then adding back the assistant chief in 2025. So it's a lot of fluctuation in there, but we just made 2 offers of employment, and then that'll put us at 2 vacancies, and we have 6 in background right now. There are about 6, but we will be fully committed with all of our staff at the end of this year. And understand that when we hire a police officer, it typically takes about 9 months once they're hired before we actually can use them. Well, if they come to us with already been to the academy, that narrows that time down. But we have to, once we hire them, we have to send them to the police academy, then we send them through field training officer, then they do their shadowing, and then they spend a couple months until they actually figure out what they got going on. I can tell you anecdotally, I remember in 1980, 89, back in Virginia when I first became a police officer, and I was really excited to finally get cut loose on my own. It's kind of like when you were a young kid and you got your driver's license and dad threw you the keys to the car, you got behind the wheel by yourself. It's like, oh, I have to do this job by myself. And it's a scary thing for that police officer on their very first day by themselves. But yeah, we'll be fully staffed.
I'm just curious, so recruitment hasn't been a huge challenge. I know folks have been struggling around the country.
We actually have made a concerted effort on our recruiting this year. In the beginning of the year, we did a professional recruiting video. We are attending colleges, not just in the area, but we're attending colleges in Michigan. We're going down to Illinois, Indiana. We're actively out recruiting across the region to attract folks in here. We're trying to incentivize what we do here as a police department on the quality of your employment here, and not just the dollars and cents associated with it, but it is important. But the quality of work that we provide and the work environment that we provide, we like to highlight that.
And I think the other thing, I've authorized the chief to overfill positions, because by the time they go through that whole 9-month period, we're usually behind on hiring. I think that's the snapshot you see here it's
An ebb and flow.
Yeah, it's ebb and flow, and by the end of the year, he'll be okay, and then you'll get an annual disclosure of people who are retiring, and we'll start again. I'll authorize the chief to overfill what?
2.
By 2.
Yes.
So, and then he goes through the whole process, and we end ourselves back where we are again. But he's hanging on very well, given that he's usually a little more stressful when he comes to me asking for the extra 2, but it's been working so successfully, and I've also done the same thing with fire, because it just takes so darn long to get everybody through.
One of the things that we try not to do is try to get behind. I strongly feel like if you don't take care of the little things now, they become big later on, and that's everything that we do. As it relates to recruiting, we're constantly running processes so that we can keep on essentially putting our fishing line out there and seeing who comes our way. And then we have our CSO program, which is an incredible recruiting tool for us. We've got a couple of CSOs that are currently, former CSOs that are currently in the academy that we've sponsored. I've got 2 more CSOs that we've just gave conditional offer employments for police officers. We'll be sponsoring them to go to the academy in January of this year. So again, the numbers may say one thing, but we have commitments out to many folks out there. But we have to keep working at it. I'm competing against Appleton, I'm competing against Green Bay, and now I'm competing against Fond du Lac. So I obviously know those chiefs, and we kind of beat on each other every now and then about, people and who do you have, and we're always trying to stay on top of what's going on, and I'm trying to be competitive in everything that we do with those so that we can continue to attract good quality officers. Yes.
Chief, I guess I think it was 12 years now of being a council member, and then also my father being a Oshkosh firefighter for over 30 years, 35 years. One thing I don't do when it comes to police and fire budgets is open my mouth, because one thing my dad told me is, realizing you're a council member and it's your responsibility to pass these budgets, is you really don't know what you're talking about when you're, with all due respect, there's 6 compadres here, you really don't know. The people that run the show, the chiefs really know what they want. So I'm not going to sit here and pick apart this budget. I think it's crazy. But I do have a couple general questions. Just, I don't know if it puts me at ease or not. In the crazy world that we live in with, terrorism and missiles being shot from miles and miles and miles away, do you think Oshkosh is a target, whether it be small, large, from any type of that activity, and how do you think that your department could handle any, whether it be, we have EAA here, I mean, if someone wanted to really get nasty, they could really get nasty. So, I mean, from the small end to the large end, how do you think your staff could handle that type of situation?
One of the things I began speaking to from the beginning of our time together today is the training that we provide to our officers. Everything that all of our responses really rely on training. So we continually work with our officers on critical incidences and a proper response to those. But no one police department can handle anything that may come that's larger scale than what typically may come their way. As an example, next year we'll be providing police officers to the city of Milwaukee to help them with the Republican National Convention. Police departments across the state are going to be providing staff for them. The city of Milwaukee can't handle that type of thing. As tragedies occur within communities, we pay attention to what's going on. As evident of the stuff that happened in Waukesha during the Christmas parade, you go to the farmer's market right now, you'll see some barriers out in front there that weren't there before. Last year, the council approved us to partner with CVB to purchase those barriers, which will stop people from hopefully driving through the farmer's market, or at least be a stronger deterrent than the wooden barriers that we had before. We've had critical incidents, obviously, that have occurred here within the city. We're the 8th largest city in the state, give or take. We're prepared to handle the initial response, but we have vast partnerships across the state. I'm a phone call away from calling whatever resource I need. We can work with the Wisconsin Emergency Management Group out of Madison to provide whatever resources we have in. I want you and our community to know that we're gonna stand up whatever resources we need to successfully keep our community as safe as we possibly can. I'm confident that we have the resources available to us for these major catastrophic issues that may occur, simply because we have these partnerships that we have across the state.
Speaking of partnership, good segue. You mentioned it earlier, the the social worker partnership we have with the county.
Yes.
Will you give us a little bit more on that, how it's going? That was the initial was us splitting it 50-50. Future state of that and where you'd like to see that possibly go?
Well, part of that, the CIP training we're about to kick off, that's to increase our partnership throughout the city with schools and within the organization who wants to be a part of that and for the public. We know that, as I mentioned before, that I could add an additional team to that, and we'd keep both teams busy throughout. What I believe is that because of the effort that we're putting for these hundreds of calls that we're responding to, that we're putting forward to it, we're providing additional, more concentrated help to those who need it. When they get into crisis and they're in a critical state, they slip through the cracks. We take care of the triage, the beginning of that occurrence with them. We get them out of crisis. Sometimes we unfortunately have to provide them some 72-hour hold through Winnebago Mental Health, and then they come back on the street and then they are able to slip back through and back into the way they were. And that's why that follow-on piece is so important to us, where not only are they responding, that team responding to the initial calls for service to somebody in crisis, after they get done with that, and it could be a week later, 2 weeks later, they're following up with that person to see if they're actually fulfilling what they've said they would do initially, to try to continue to give them resources, because they kind of get lost in their recovery efforts. It's not a new model. We see that in drug recovery programs. The recidivism of drug recovery is so huge right now. It requires continued follow-up. But those who are in mental health issues, it's a difficult job to do. And my problem I have right now is that I have a team that works 8 hours a day. I don't have a team that works 24 hours a day. And we have critical calls that could occur at 10 o'clock at night, and there may not be that team here to do those things. That's why I'm confident that whatever we're doing right now is just a scratch in the surface, and we can do so much more. I can give you all the anecdotal stories in the world of where our behavioral health officer and our social worker and Magic show up, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of comes down. I was going to bring Magic to last week's council meeting. He showed up briefly, and I thought y'all had it, so I told him go on home, because Magic just does a good job of calming people down a little bit. I think that the work that they do is incredibly important, and I know that other agencies across the valley are either starting a program or they want to start a program, in small part to what we've done here in Oshkosh.
In terms of funding, that was if I remember on the county side, county executive had basically a 2-year window
Yes.
to temporarily fund a position. So if it's going forward for another year, looking forward, then, if that's something that they don't plan to fund going forward, if it's that important, that we're gonna have to do that.
I agree with you, but I will tell you, I got word from our social worker that the county has picked up this as a permanent funding position. And the really cool thing about this is because we have a social worker who's actually employed by the county, we're connected into all the resources that the county has. If we were separate from the county and we had our own social worker that was our employee, she wouldn't be able to get into the resources that the county has, be able to plug that person in there. So it just works so well to have that connection there. But my last report from her is that the position is being fully funded, being partially funded permanently through the county.
It's no more it's
Thank you. It's no longer a project.
position.
Yes.
And he says he wouldn't use candy to bribe us, but he'd bring a dog though. I just want that clear, so.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think that was a great question. And there's a reason that my book is open to this page. I could speak for hours on what I've seen these people do and the difference that they have made. I'll also just want to call out your team and echo what you've said about the amount of work, patience, and dignity that they've shown with the people experiencing homelessness in Oshkosh. It has been difficult all the time and a joy most of the time when we have to work together, because it's, when we're calling OPD, of course, it's when we can't handle it. And I just want to say thank you for your team and what you do.
No, I appreciate that, and as I said it from the beginning, if you see a police officer, thank them, because it's the work that they do day in and day out that makes this thing work for us. Generally we're all policymakers here in the room. We kind of, whatever our world is, we kind of make things happen, but it's the people that do the work day by day that to me are incredibly important and make this thing actually work for us. We can nudge it here and nudge it there, but they do a great job. Thank you.
And also that fentanyl thing is real.
It absolutely is.
And that is the most scary thing.
It absolutely is. So, with no other questions on the police department's main operating budget, we do have a couple more budgets that are more cleanup, unless you have any more questions on our budget. We have our school crossing guard budget. We provide 18 school crossing guards. I think we have 4 alternates for them. That's a relatively flat budget for the school crossing guards, as well as funding that we provide for the Humane Society on a contract basis.
Crossing guards is on page 110. If you're looking for it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, crossing guards, we have 18 school crossing guards, and it certainly is a challenge to keep that fully staffed. It's hard to ask somebody to get up really, really early in the morning in the wintertime when it's really, really cold out and go out there and cross kids in snow and then come back in when the kids are getting out and do the same thing. But we've been pretty successful in keeping our staffing at least almost fully staffed most of the time. It's an ebb and flow as well for crossing guards. If you know anybody that's looking for a really short part-time job, I got one for them.
Do you do anything for the crossing guards, like some kind of party or something where they can attend once a year, a couple times a year?
No,
No,
no, we don't do that. No, we would provide something like that as it relates to a special event. And we have our special event ordinance that any extraordinary services that may come our way, that's when we would provide a police officer out there to do that type of crossing. You got to understand our community understands where the crossing zones are, and they're creatures of habit. And as they travel every day, they see a crossing guard out there. It adds to that awareness that there may be kids present. When the one pops up, like 4 in the afternoon when it's not supposed to be there, we'd rather have a police officer there with a car that can make lights go and command attention than some of our seniors that we have as crossing guards. So it would be a special event purpose for us in that regard. Any other questions on crossing guards? Then we move on to our as I mentioned, the Humane Society. That is a contract animal care budget. It's page 106, 107. It's a contract that we have with the Humane Society, where they handle all of our impoundments. They handle all of our storage and maintenance of the dogs that are strays and animals that are strays within the community. And some of you all have heard me joke about this. In my previous life, I managed animal control officers. We want no part of that. That's very expensive, and it's very, very difficult to run an animal control. And to have, this is a bargain for us to do it at this rate. I can assure you that. And then finally, we have our auxiliary budget. And if you understand our auxiliary, they've been around for 60 years. They provide in-kind or they provide free services generally to many events as we can get them out there. They're all volunteer. There's not a one of them that gets paid for what they do. We have some original auxiliary officers who don't work as much anymore as they once did, but they're still a part of the auxiliary, providing that historical perspective. It's volunteerism at its best. It started basically as a Civil Air Patrol a long, long time ago. And now they are our auxiliary, and the city provides them some resources to help them do their work. And we wouldn't be able to do what we do for our events if it wasn't for our auxiliary and the volunteer hours that they provide back to the community for special events. We use them at crime scenes when we need somebody to man a street corner because we have to block off roadways. We'll use them at accident scenes. For major incidents where it's long-term, we'll call the auxiliary out, and they'll staff those positions for us. As you see in our parades, by ordinance, we provide security at every parade, so every street corner that of a parade route has to have somebody standing there to keep vehicles and people from walking into the parade. Our auxiliary fills some of those positions for us, which reduces our costs here in the city.
You bought a truck, what, 5 years ago, Chief? That's about it. And we hadn't bought one for 15 years before that.
I think we bought half a truck, and they paid for the other half through donations that they received. Yeah, so it was a mutual purchase. Yes, they paid for half, and we paid for half.
But yeah, I mean, that's that and $6,000. We get a lot of value.
We really do. We really do. And with that, the only thing I have left, unless there's any questions, is our CIP budget. So as you look through our CIP,
This is in the back, page 437.
yes. We don't have a lot of CIP requests, but what we do have, we think are incredibly important to us. As everybody's getting to it, you'll see it.
449 might be better, because it's by department, on the bottom of it.
It's really just 3 items.
Yeah, and for those who are not aware, last year CIP we began our taser replacement program. It's a 5-year program where we have a maintenance, we have replacements, we have for all of our tasers, a complete replacement of all of our tasers. It runs 5 years, and that's that cost associated with that. You'll see C-Cov retrofit. Eventually, we're going to have to replace our C-Cov vehicle, but we're trying to replace all the electronics that are inside there because they're just dated.
Acronym alert, could you tell the council what CCUV stands for?
Community Outreach Vehicle. I forget what the first C was, but it's
Communications.
Yes, but it's our command post as well. And you'll see us do roll calls out in the community. You'll see us use that at critical incidences. When I was a younger leader in the police department, sometimes you would be managing scenes on the hood of a car or in the back seat of a car because it was just cold outside. And this provides us somewhere to properly manage critical incidents as they occur. But the technology that is in there started in 2014, and it's got a projected lifespan of 2027 for the vehicle. However, the technology itself is over 10 years old, and we want to replace the technology that's actually inside the vehicle to bring us up to speed. We also have an evidence lab renovation that is in the facilities budget, I believe. You may see that if they haven't, I'm not sure if facilities has been in yet, but our lab needs to be updated. It's old. It's got orange cabinets. If you're interested in orange cabinets, I can provide those to you. And other than that, we have a request also for police fleet vehicles, and this is changing our programming. so that we offer take-home vehicles to keep us competitive with our peers around us. We have Neenah, the county, Appleton, in some respect Green Bay, that are providing take-home vehicles to their officers, and I want to be able to provide that service to our officers as well. We went away from a one-on-one program several years back due to costs, but in today's time of recruiting, our officers are looking for something other than dollars. Dollars are important to them, don't get me wrong. They want their money, but they also are looking for other benefits that may come their way. So I'm looking for that as well, to help facilitate the retention of our police officers. And I think that is it.
Chief, is the sidearm replacement done, or is that still being ongoing?
We're waiting for them to show up.
Okay.
They've been ordered. We're starting to get some pieces of that equipment in, but it's just a matter of when they show up from Smith & Wesson. Are there any other questions? Well, with that, I give you the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Chief.
I accept.
It's tough coming at the end of the day.
That's all we have for today. Are there any thoughts or questions before we
What's that?
break for the day?
Always bring magic.
So what are we gonna do here tomorrow, Mark?
You can come visit
We'll
us.
work with museum and library to bump those up a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna move them up, and so I think the goal will be to be done by, well, get to Q&A about 3:15. So, and Mr. Robbie, I spoke with him based on our discussion just before lunch regarding special assessments, and he'll be prepared to be here tomorrow to engage the council in that conversation. He was half expecting it, so I think he thought he got away with by the skin of his teeth, but you guys grabbed him back just before lunch, so.
I just didn't know the right place.
That's quite all right, no, that's okay, but James is available, so it'll work out fine.
Can we leave this stuff here, or?
You're welcome to go put it on my table there.
Do you have anything?
I'm not,
Any questions, anything that council wants to discuss before we break for the day? Sometimes it's best to kind of save it till the end after you've heard it all. Yeah. Okay. Then we'll wrap up for the day, 3:30. Bright-eyed tomorrow morning again at 8 a.m. And then, like Mark said, we'll hopefully wrap up the informative part around 3-ish and then give us time to discuss or ask questions. Have a great evening.
great, thank you.